All right, so can everyone see my VS Code window?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So do a couple things. I'm going to go over this challenge, the Django queries challenge. Try to go over that relatively quickly. Not going to spend time doing every single one because it's kind of repetitive. And once we do a few, you should have the general idea. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about validations. So I'm not really going to go over it exactly, but just hopefully give you more of an introduction to point you in the right direction if you haven't started that yet. Okay, so here I've forked the repo and cloned it, and now I'm out here. So if we cd into ORM queries, and then we have our manage.py file. So we're told to run the tests. So Python manage.py test. Oh, so I haven't installed Django yet. So I've cloned this down, but I haven't installed Django. So I would like to create a virtual environment to do that so I don't pollute my global system. So in order to do that, we'll do, let's see, where are we? I'll do it out here. And then I'll activate it. And I'll install Django. Actually, I should probably just install the requirements.txt. So I'm going to do that now. So this has everything that I'll need for this particular project. All right, so I've got everything installed, so it should be working now. So now I need to go into the directory with my manage.py files. So here we have the manage.py. So, and the parameter we'll pass is test. That should automatically, as long as we follow the rules of the Python tests, or sorry, the Django tests, it should automatically detect everything and run it. So here we have 19 tests, and they all fail. So we can take a look at what we have. So if we go into our products app, we can see we don't really have we don't have a full app. We just have the back end basically. So we just have the models. So here we can see that we have one class, which is going to end up being one table in our database. It's a product, and it's got a whole bunch of fields, which are going to end up being columns in our table. So nothing too crazy going on here. So we'll look at our tests, and we can see, so I'm going to go ahead and comment out all of these tests except for the first one, just so the output will be easier to read. And let's try running this again. Okay. So we can look more carefully at this test. So product CRUD, it looks like it's going to get all the products, and then it's going to test if the product list we get from our product CRUD, and product CRUD, I don't know where this is coming from, so I can see that it's being imported. So product CRUD is a class being imported, and I can see that it's imported from this product CRUD file, which is going to be on the same level. So product CRUD, I can see this. So this get all products method in the product CRUD class. So that method is being called, and basically it's going to check to see if that method actually is returning all of the everything in the database. So we can start filling that out, but let's say we have no idea how to even get started. So you can do a search for queries and get to the Django documentation. So making queries. Let's see, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on here. Objects, saving things, retrieving things. So that might be closer to what we want. Retrieving all objects. Okay, looks like it's whatever our class is, dot objects dot all. They're query sets. Okay. There's filter. So this is a good start. We can kind of get a sense for how this works. Looks like filter looks like you can attach some other things. You can have filter.exclude. So that's interesting. So you can chain a bunch of things together. There's also parameters. Looks like you can pass. So headline, presumably headline is a field name and a double underscore for some reason. That's a bit strange. And then starts with. So starts with, there might be something special about that. We can take a look at query sets. So there are, I guess, queries that will return a query set, and methods that do not return query sets. So it looks like get, create. We can take a look at get. For example, get returns the object matching the given lookup parameters. If you expect the query set to already return one row, you can use get. So it looks like if you're just getting one particular thing, then you don't get a query set. Whereas if you get several things, then you get a query set. So maybe that kind of makes some sense just based on the name. So let's try doing we'll just do a search on the page, and we'll do something like, I don't know, get all. That doesn't work. Maybe all. It's going to give you way too many results, but here we got something like this. So it looks like there's a whole bunch of methods that I can just look at here on the right side. Filter, exclude. So we've seen a couple of those just a minute ago. So this should tell us we're probably in the right place. But this has everything. So it looks like all, if you want to get everything, returns a copy of the current query set. This actually doesn't tell us very much, this particular description, but it's used everywhere in the examples. So let's just go ahead and use it and assume that it will work. So if you go back to our application here, so we need to pass this test. Again, we need to get every single object. So we need to call from our product. So product, so this is the class that are our model. And then objects, looks like they all work with this objects keyword. And then all. So we can try doing something like that. And we'll run our test file again. And it looks like it passes. Okay, so maybe I don't entirely understand everything that's happening. I don't have a detailed grasp on all of these methods, but I can start kind of just trying to reverse engineer, even copying. So in order to test that I have the correct answer, this is calling product.objects.all. So that might be a useful hint in the right direction. That That's not always going to be there, but okay. So now we'll look on test 2. So let's try running it again. And it will fail. So let's go ahead and you can write another test. I'm not sure these really need to be class methods. Let's see.
Mine wouldn't work without class method.
Okay, that may just be a requirement for the library. Okay, so now we need to write a method called find by model. So you can, so find by model, we're gonna have to do something. It looks like we're also gonna have to be able to handle a parameter. So we'll add, this is the model we're looking for. And then what we need to do is do a search for everything, and somehow filter, or we could do filter, or we could do get if there's only one. So finds the matching product. So we could try doing a search for several things. So we could do filter, and so let's look at the API for filter. Scroll back up here. Okay. It returns a query set containing objects. The lookup parameter should be in a format described in field lookups. Okay, there's also something about queue objects. So maybe we'll revisit that in a sec. Field lookups, exact. Okay, so this is where this other stuff is coming from. Okay, maybe we don't have to worry about that for right now. Let's just try checking for a specific match here. Okay, so we get a failure here. So let's look at our test. So it fails and assert equal. So this first thing is what I got. This is what, my method got, and this is what it's expecting. So it looks like it's the same thing, returning one thing here. The only difference is that this is a query set, and this is not a query set. So you could just try playing around with a couple things. You could try maybe try doing something like that. So again, this is an ORM, so it's a little bit tricky. So we can do stuff with SQL or Python. So that passes, although that might not be, this seems a little hacky maybe. So it might be a better way. If it looks like our test is expecting not a query set, and we can look at our API documentation again. Scroll up here. So methods that return new query sets, filter, exclude, and so on and so on. And methods that do not return query sets, we have get, for example. So maybe we should try get. Get doesn't return a query set. So this works. We could do that. But let's try using get instead. Okay, so that works too. So especially with some of these more complicated ones, there's usually more than one way to do it, but the alternatives are usually not as good. So for something like this, I would probably use get, try to use the built-in stuff as much as possible. It's likely that it's optimized and design better than whatever your ad hoc Python thing you're doing is. All right, so that's number 2. Let's go back to our tests. And I think I'm going to skip ahead to a few of these. Maybe we'll go to, just because I don't want to spend all this time here. It's very repetitive. Let's try test number 9. So we'll run the test. Okay, that fails. So what we want to do here is see if, so below price or above rating. So returns products below a price or above a rating. So this is kind of complicated. So it's going to expect this method. Looks like it'll take a price and a rating. All right, so let's look carefully here. So returns a product below a price or above a rating. Okay, and the price, it looks like the price, we can look back at our models here. And we have, where's price? So we don't have a field called price exactly. We have one called price cents. So we'll have to keep that in mind. It's always good to refer back, you can refer back to the model. You can also look at the tests. So we're trying to kind of reverse engineer functionality. All right. So the first thing we do is let's maybe try something more naive. So we can just try getting everything below a certain price. So we know we have to do product dot objects. And so we know, let's say we know we want to get more than one thing. So we're going to need to choose a method that returns a query set. And filter seems like an obvious choice. And what we want to do is price in cents. So we want to do something, I'll just kind of write out what we want to do. So price cents is, let's say, less than price, right? So we want to do something like this. This may not be the correct syntax, but what we want to do is look up everything, see if this particular value is less than this. So this, in fact, won't work, but we can see how we do that. So this filter, let's do, so look in filter again. You can go up here. So field lookups. So field lookups are how you specify the meat of a SQL where clause. So that sounds like a SQL where clause. So, select star from products where price cents is less than whatever price we get. So that sounds like a where clause. I think we're in the right place. So you can do ID exact. Let's see. So it looks like ID is going to be the field in our model, and then we have this double underscore and then something like the where clause. So you can see here, select whatever where ID equals 4. So again, we have these queries. Since we're all SQL experts, we can make use of this. So contains in, that's fine, greater than, less than. So we have an example for greater than. So whatever ID double underscore greater than equals 4. So this is something that we want, but we're going to use less than. So it looks like we can copy this model. So LT, you go back here, you go price and cents. double underscore LT equals price. So something like that, I think, should get us the all of the products that are less than this. And then maybe we can do, so we have res 1 and res 2. And then also above a rating. So we can do something, we can do the same kind of thing. So rating, double underscore, we'll do greater than. So now we have two sets of things, and maybe we could implement some kind of logic that handles both of them. So that could work. So we could just kind of make two independent queries that are maybe a little bit simpler, and then again, do some Python logic here, maybe create a set based on both of these, and then we'll only have, maybe only have things that belong to both. We could have like a union set where we take another, like a Venn diagram, only the things that are in the middle we take. But that's going to involve making two database queries, which is probably a bad idea. So let's scrap this and see if there's a way for us to make a complex filter query. So we saw, I vaguely recall seeing something in the filter. Where was that? Filter. So there's field lookups. Where was that?
Chad, can't you just use the and like they are there?
Yeah. So can you say it again? Like they are there?
Oh, sorry. Like it's written where you just were. Oh, multiple via join via and I'm not underlining SQL statement, but
Yeah.
like right here in the select and there's an and operator here too.
There's also an or.
So there's an and, there's an or. So there's a couple ways to do this. Well, so that is good, and that work.
I was mistaken. I was looking at it as and, but this is the or example.
Yeah, so I believe that the standard is and, so if you don't include anything, it'll be and. But what I wanted to point out was that you can use something called queue objects. So multiple parameters are joined via and in the underlying, so we could do that. So you could do, let's try doing it this way first. So res equals, and then product dot objects dot filter. And so again, we want to get prices below a price. So price cents. And we'll do, is actually less than or equal. So I believe this is the one that we want. We can double check that, but price. And then we can also just do, I think, comma, and then greater than or equal, something like that.
You don't need that extra E in there.
Okay. We'll try running like this because it's always good just to double check. If we get failures, then okay. So that is a failure. So the list that we get looks like is shorter. So our query looks like it was more restrictive than what our tests wanted. So let's make our test less restrictive.
It's also looking for or, and we gave it and.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. So how do we handle an or here?
The Q objects.
Okay, so looks like we try to do it this way. So we're looking at filter. We know we need 2 parameters. We initially started with 2 separate queries. Now we have 1 query, but we're using and we need to use or. So you can take a look at Q objects. So a Q object represents a SQL condition that can be used in database related operations. So you can combine them with and or. So we get, again, redirected somewhere else. This is starting to get confusing. So this is telling us where this is located. So we might have to import something. Let's see. So it looks like we can pass something like this into our filter. We can pass this into our filter as a parameter. All right, so let's try. We're gonna have to import this. So from so we're importing Q, and now we'll scrap this. And we're gonna do something like Q, and then we can do our same thing. So price cents greater than equals price, or, and then rating. This is actually the other one is less than. Okay, so we have this Q query, which seems kind of complicated. Doesn't really look like SQL to me, but oh, I need 2 underscores, it looks like. Okay, so that works. So it looks like we can make complicated filter expressions using, we can just pass a whole bunch of these things. We can control if it's greater than, less than, starts with, there's all kinds of things, and we can connect them using and or.
Chad, can I ask you about that Q object? Or
Sure.
the Q, how much of it do we need to know, or do we just need to kind of know that it works for that? Because I used it, but I don't really know what it's doing.
Yeah, I think that's fine. To be honest, the stuff we're doing now with these queries and the validators for your projects, it's likely that you're not going to do anything as complicated as the most complicated stuff that we're doing. I'd say it's very, very likely that you're not going to do that. So this is more exposure to how all of this stuff works. And then if you need to use it later, you can always come back and use it. But I wouldn't worry about really digging in deep. The Django, this framework is way too big to understand it completely in a few weeks. So just take what you need and then move on to the next thing. So I'm gonna stop here for the queries because it's just going to become very tedious. But this is the basic process where you're just looking at the documentation. You're gonna look at your models. You're gonna look at your tests. You're gonna take all the information you can. You'll do searches. Some of these queries are a little bit more complicated, but if you can use filter and this Q object, then you can get 90% of what you need to get done.
Can I ask Chad if we
Sure.
can look at one more?
Sure. Yeah.
A later down one, because it had me stuck and I can't find
Okay.
it.
Is there?
It's test 15.
Okay. Let's look at test 15. So category manufacturers. Okay, so category manufacturers, you get a category and it returns an array of manufacturers for a category. Okay. So let's copy this. All right, so what we want to do is we're going to have to take this. So I'm assuming that we're going to use filter. It looks like we're going to get back, potentially multiple things, and we want it to be filtered by manufacturer. So my first thought is filter with manufacturer. Let's take another closer look. So returns an array of manufacturers for a category. Okay, so this is actually going to be a category, not a manufacturer. Good thing I double checked. So we somehow, if we can get a bunch of, let's just try doing the first part of the query and see what happens. So product objects filter, and we will do category equals category. Okay. So, okay. So this is what I'm giving, and this is what it should have. It looks like we're getting the same number of results. So that's kind of a good sign. So I'm returning 5 things. I can double check, because we have a fake database. So object 10, let's see what object 10 is. We go to fixtures, products.yaml. 10 is Cormier, Rice, and Ledner. So it looks like, I could check all of these, but probably I'm actually getting the right results. At least I'm getting the right, objects. But we somehow need to return not the whole thing. So this is kind of like maybe a select star from whatever, whereas we need to do select specific column name from whatever. So we could do a search. So Django get column, something like that. Equivalent of select column name from table name. It's a good thing we know SQL. We can understand things like this. Select column name from table name. Okay, so we're filtering. This is interesting. Values list, column name. Okay, let me see. So this is the question. Values list. So people are talking about values list. So that might be worth looking as values list. So let's go ahead and take a look at, there's a link here to the documentation. I think we're on 3.1. Okay, so values list. Fields. Flat full. So this is similar to values, except that instead of returning dictionaries, it returns tuples. When iterated over, each tuple contains the value from the respective field. So if I just want manufacturer names, so the manufacturer field, values list. So let's try using that. Let's try using that and see what happens. So dot values list. And what we want is the manufacturer, right? So let's run this. Okay, so my test is still failing, but now this is looking a little better, right? So I can at least see, I can see that the right answer is right there, but it's just wrapped in this tuple. So it's returning a tuple, and I don't want it to return a tuple. So this is a little bit confusing. So
You need to use flat.
thank you for telling me I was going to get to that. But yes, we do need to use flat. So, but if we're going through this process, we can see that we have the correct answer here. So we have all the information. So we've gone from just grabbing the entire object, which is like select star from, and we've kind of narrowed it down to select manufacturer from blah 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 blah, where blah blah blah. So now our query is actually good. So we have our query. We just need to pay attention to the specific data type. Now, maybe, I mean, this is only because the test is set up this way. So the test could have been written differently, and maybe it just wanted a bunch of tuples and it would have passed immediately. But yeah, in order to do that, so Julie is right. One way to do this, kind of using Django instead of doing some Python magic, is just to do flat equals true. And now it passes.
Wait, what does flat do?
Well, we can look it up. So flat, say values list. It is an error to pass in flat when there is more than one field. You can pass named equals true to get the results as a named tuple. Where's flat here?
I think you passed it, Chad. It was up.
Yeah, it
right
was square.
Okay. So thank you. So the first example is I can see that I'm getting a query set, which is, you can kind of think of it as an array, but it's not exactly an array. And then it returns a bunch of tuples. Here, we're basically, it's kind of like destructuring or something, but we're flattening it. So it's not a an array with an array or tuple with an array. It's just an array of things. Okay, so this isn't the only way to do this. You could do, again, we could just use, we could use like a Python this comprehension or something like that to do that, but this comes included, so it's probably handled better than what you would do just writing your own Python stuff.
I got kind of stuck on, I was just trying to force it to be a different way. I was trying to use distinct to make it work, and that was not working. So
yeah, there's a couple of these queries where you can definitely get 90% of the way there. But in order to get the 100%, you have to backtrack and redo some stuff. So, okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing.